So what? We've got R set up, we've got RStudio set up, but we haven't actually done anything yet. All right, let's actually do something with R rather than just setting it up to show that this program is good for something. So the next step is we need to read in our data. So we have our data file. We can see it in our directory here, the world countries data 2019, which is a CSV file, which is a file that RStudio can read well, R can read well, and even Excel can read this kind of file as well, or Numbers, or LibreOffice Calc, or any kind of spreadsheet file can open it up. But it's actually a very simple kind of file. If we open it up in RStudio, we can actually see that it's just plain text, and it has the different data points in the file are just separated by commas. So CSV stands for comma separated values. So it's a very simple file format that's very convenient for trading data. More convenient and more simple than a standard Excel file. So how do we read this in? So once again, we can I'm going to save it before I do that. Notice I have that asterisk there. So it's a good reminder to save regularly so that I don't lose any of my work. So I search again for the read in the data file code chunk, which happens to be right after the library code chunk. I could search for it using the edit find, but since it's right there, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit to see the data. So we need to read in the data in order for R to see it. So I'm going to paste in the data. And the next thing I need to do is, so here we have our first R command where we're doing something a little bit more complicated. So these library commands are pretty simple. It just says, I want a library, I want to load the library Mosaic, and I want to load the library readr. These are things that make it easier to work with the data. But now I'm going to use a fancier function. I'm going to use a function that's called read.csv. So what's happening here is that I'm taking the output of read underscore CSV. Sorry, I just said read.csv, but obviously it's read underscore CSV data file. And then here I'm going to give R the name of the data file. And I put it in quotes because it's not something that's living within R already that R knows about. It's just the name of the file that we need to use. So if I get rid of this and I type some quotes and I start typing world countries data, I can actually press tab and RStudio knows that I'm looking for a file in this directory, and there's only one that starts with world, so it fills in the rest for me. So that can save you a little bit of typing, or I could have typed it by hand, whatever works for you. So, so what this command says is that I read this file in, and then I assign it to this new object called data name. And I want to change data name. That's not terribly informative. I'll name it to countries, which is the suggestion in the instructions. But you could name it to, you could change it to any name that you want. But I just chose to call it countries with a lowercase c. It's arbitrary and it's up to you. It's like naming a variable in an algebra equation. So I read in that data. And it gives me some information about how it read it in. It shows that I have 196 rows in my data. I have 18 columns. That sounds about right for 196 countries. And I have a new thing that showed up in my environment pane over here. So I have a thing called countries. I can actually look at it within R, which is kind of cool. There's this little spreadsheet icon. That's where I can look at, ooh, this is what I read in. So now we have the data in R. We have something informative. We've done something a little bit. So in the next videos, we'll actually start calculating statistics and getting towards those plots.